Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining today's event, Lessons on Effective Mentoring from Harvard, PNC Financial, and City of Seattle. We're so glad you're here with us today. We're going to give people just another minute or so to join before we officially get started. So while we wait, please feel free to drop into the chat and let us know two quick things. One, where you're joining from, and two, what type of organization you're with, whether that's corporate, higher ed, government, nonprofit, or something else entirely. It's always so much fun to just see who's in the room and sharing. That helps us and the speakers get a better sense of who's in the audience today so they can tailor their insights to what's most relevant to you. Thank you so much, Kristen. Two Kristens. Great. And I'm joining from New York City. I'll share a little bit more about my bio in just a moment when we do introductions. But recently, New York City was rated number 2 as the best cities in the world for 2025. Fun fact. I'm not a huge sports fan, so I had to do some real digging to try and find something to share with you all about New York, to have a little pride. But I'll tell you a little bit more about myself in a moment. We've got such a great session ahead today. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks so much in advance to our panelists, and thanks again to our audience for being here. All right, let's kick things off with introductions. Thanks so much again, everyone, for telling us where you're visiting from. I'm seeing people from all across the country and from all different sectors. So just like our panelists, right? I'll go first with introductions. I'm Jen Baines, Customer Experience Manager here at Chronus. I've been with the team since 2022, partnering with companies to create a more connected workplace where employees can truly thrive. And my background is in the education nonprofit world, first at a company called Reading Partners, and then I mentor. So I've always been passionate about helping people grow and reach their full potential. Now I get to support organizations doing just that through mentorship and connection communities. So I love getting to work at Chronus, and I'm happy to be joining you for this panel today. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our wonderful panelists. We have a great lineup for you today. First, we have Cassie Brown, who is the Director of Alumni Communities at Harvard Business School, where she leads strategies to engage students, recent graduates, and alumni. With over a decade of experience in alumni relations at Harvard, she's passionate about building meaningful connections. Cassie holds degrees from the College of Worcester and Harvard University. Next, we have Tony, who's the SVP, Head of D&I Workforce and Workplace with PNC. Tony Moraga leads the employee engagement, development, and inclusion efforts for PNC's 55,000 plus employees. He oversees PNC's employee business resource groups, mentoring programs, and strategic D&I councils. Prior to PNC, Tony supported LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs through roles at Start Out and the SF LGBT Center. He holds degrees from LSE and Cal State LA and is currently taking a course at Harvard. Funny enough, he's also been recognized by Diversity MBA and the LA Times for his leadership in DEI. And then we also are joined by Dave Wright from City of Seattle. Dave is a public sector operations leader with 20 plus years of experience in program and project management, specializing in talent acquisition and development. He has spent over a decade with City of Seattle, leading teams and initiatives that drive employee recruitment, growth, and retention. He is a servant leader, is passionate about fostering inclusive workplaces, empowering others, and creating opportunities for continuous learning and development. He holds an MPA and a BA in psychology and serves on the board of the Evergreen Goodwill Industries of the Pacific Northwest. So we have an amazing, amazing group joining us. I can't wait for the conversation. Let's take a quick peek at our agenda for today, and then I'll share a little bit about Chronus before we hop into our panel discussion. So we've just done the welcome and introductions. We're going to talk during our discussion today about some of the challenges in today's workforce. We're going to hear a bit about the mentoring programs run by each of our panelists. And then finally, we're going to talk some best practices and tips. We'll end with Q&A. So as you're going through this, make sure you're considering questions you might want to ask the panelists.
Looks like we had a change in our moderator for today. Amanda, thanks for taking over.
Hopefully she'll be right back. I just want to jump in while Jen maybe is having a little technical difficulty. So thank you all. As the joy of live events, you never know quite what's going to happen. So Jen jumps back. I will step away. But I'm Amanda Schneiders, Director of Content and Communications, and always running in the background to make sure that that we have someone on standby. And it looks like Jen may be coming back in. We'll see if she's able to get in.
Am I back?
I think you're back.
So sorry about that all. I think I had a brief internet outage there. All right, well, let's keep it moving. It looks like my camera is not on just yet. Hopefully it comes, there we go. Okay, well, thank you so much. Glad to be back. So before we pass it over to our panelists, I'll just share a brief bit about Chronus, if we want to move to that slide. Great. So Chronus is a purpose-driven development platform that offers mentoring and connection community software to help enterprise organizations combat the connection crisis in organizations and disengagement at work. We've helped large enterprises, we've helped government agencies and nonprofits and academic institutions do this for more than 15 years with a platform that makes customers feel secure, supported, and ready to scale. So during this session, if at any point you want to learn more about working with Chronus, there is a Talk to Our Experts button in the top of your webinar platform. So feel free to click that at any time. And then lastly, I'll do a quick housekeeping tips before we move on. If you have questions for us during the presentation today, just use the chat like you did at the beginning to introduce yourself. Oh, sorry, for questions, you can also direct those to the Q&A. If you put them in the chat, no worries, we will redirect them and get them where we need to be. You can also send a private message for one-on-one communication. You can use the messages box. And if you're unsure where to put something, just put it in the chat. That's totally fine. So great. Now let's get started with our panel. We're going to start by talking today about what some of the challenges are that your organizations face. So specific to your sector, we're trying to think about what was it that you were trying to solve when you started your mentoring programs. So perhaps I can start with you, Dave, and just hear a little bit about what challenge your org was facing at City of Seattle, what you were looking to solve.
Sure. My everybody. So with the City of Seattle, we're an organization of about 12,000 employees across 40 different departments. And a number of years ago, we had a few interdepartmental teams come together and look at employee engagement, employee career mobility. And we got some really candid feedback that as a large organization, we were very siloed. Employees didn't know what career paths exist, and they felt disconnected to other employees outside of their department. And so one of my colleagues, Sandra Wong, who I have to give a lot of credit to, convened a lot of these groups to try to clarify what is the unified problem across all the departments that have mentorship programs, and how do we strategically engage those individuals and align those programs to best serve our employees. And as a result, mentorship software was one of the many strategies that were part of that solution.
I think you're on mute, Jen.
Thanks so much. Tech issues. How about you, Cassie? What were you trying to solve at Harvard?
Sure. So I work in alumni relations, as you mentioned, and our program is really geared towards our alumni. So that's our women alumni, and it started in 2016. So we've been running it for a while, and it's really designed to better support this group, connect them back to the school and each other. They have a really unique set of needs in terms of being really high level achievers that are also balancing their personal lives and other things. So it's been a really great network and support system, particularly for this group, and to seek advice and learn from each other.
Amazing. And you, Tony?
Sure. So PNC is one of the largest financial services institutions in the US. We have over 55,000 employees, and we're a full service coast to coast bank with over 2,200 branches. So with that comes a lot of challenges, especially related to growth, as we've grown from a super regional bank to a coast to coast bank. And so one of the biggest challenges we're facing from a talent perspective is how remote work has changed employee expectations, which has had impacts on fostering connectivity, professional development, and creating a sense of belonging. Additionally, just the expansive retail network of our organization and those frontline employees have an obligation to be in the office. And so ensuring that they also have access to professional development opportunities that can mitigate some of the silos. Dave, talking about silos, we experience them as well, right? And mentoring was seen as an opportunity to leverage that.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing and speaking to that. And in your case, Tony, talking about like the differences for different areas of the business, whether it's the retail employees or more corporate. So great. And so given all of these things, if you haven't shared already, is there anything else you want to highlight, just top line headlines for how mentoring has created impact in those areas? And we'll get into more of the details of your specific programs and how you're measuring success later on, but any top line that you want to share?
I'll jump in. So the city implemented both one-on-one mentorship programs at the department level and flash mentorships. And flash mentorships democratized networking for us. Instead of you getting connections through your existing networks, you have to know somebody who knows somebody. You can now go into the system and identify one of 150 mentors across the city to establish that relationship. It really changed the way networking works at the city.
Amazing.
And I can chime in too. Our Circles program is really it's more of a group matching program than one-to-one mentoring. And at its core, we're really trying to match as many diverse groups of alumni with each other. So that's, they might have a similar location and time that they can meet in common, but they might have a different age, industry, personal life experience. And we found that kind of diverse connection with each other has created really powerful groups.
And to talk about our evolution, just to know, we've been doing this mentoring program with Chronus since 2013, and we started with 220 participants, and now we're at 5,500. And our program has evolved over time. And I'm guessing attendees are probably wondering why someone from diversity and inclusion is talking about mentoring. And I'm sure you can see that inclusive leadership and diverse networking go hand in hand. But ours started as a program to support members of our employee business resource groups, of which it's our most popular employee engagement platform here at PNC. And that's evolved over time to being open to all employees. But we started it as a fundamental opportunity to grow professionally within those already established networks. And now it's evolved across the entire company with employee business resource group as part of it to identify if you wanted to connect with someone within lines of business, within your own market. And so being able to identify how individuals want to be connected is really the first stage of how we've tried to address the issues around connectivity.
Great. Well, I'm sure everyone is starting to get so excited after hearing what challenges you're facing trying to solve with mentoring, and then how you've grown your programs, where you're at now, some of those successes that you're seeing. So we'll now step back and just talk a little bit about how you designed your programs. So I think with this one, I will start with you, Cassie, but can you walk us through your mentoring program or programs, how you decided to structure your program to be the group model that you have, any sort of considerations you had for matchmaking? I know you just talked a little bit about wanting same location, but diversity in other ways. So if you could just share a little bit more context to people who are listening in about some of those key decisions you made in the design process.
Sure, absolutely, Jen. So Harvard uses Chronus in a few different areas, actually, which is how we learned about the software. And they use it through the university. I know some staff have some women in tech groups. At the business school, we have some student to alumni one-to-one mentoring in specific industries. And we learned about this software from our peers who run that. So really, we were looking for a platform to help better run our program. It was very manual, a lot of manual work. I know my colleague Kristen is listening into this, and she can vouch for that too. But the matching process, the data collection, trying to connect users with each other. We have more than 1,600 members right now. It's a lot to try to be the in-between person for all of them. So being able to use Chronus and put those members directly in touch with each other without us having to be the middleman for everything has been hugely helpful. And we've been using it. We just launched our 2025 Circles program. It's you can see these groups are 6 to 10 women who meet on a monthly basis for a year. So we run enrollment each year. This year, we had some groups carry over who have been previously meeting, and then we had some new members join. We just launched in Chronus in 2025, as I mentioned, and already we have a really good user adaptability rate, which is huge. So we can see that these groups are already talking, they're already connecting. And this really used to be kind of a black hole for us, as we'd send this out into the universe and not necessarily know how many things were happening unless we were asking specific surveys or feedback. We're hoping to scale the program. We have a lot of alumni at Harvard Business School. We have over 90,000 alumni and counting. And of that 90,000 population, about 20,000 are alumni, which this program is designed to specifically support. So about 10% of those alumni are involved in this Circles program, which is our flagship program. So as you can see, it's more of a group program. We use the Circles platform on Chronus to support this, which is ironic because that's the name of our program too. So it just seemed like it was a match and made in heaven. It was meant to be. And we've just gotten such great feedback from the participants over the years. So we're really excited to be able to have something that helps us administer the program better. It's more seamless. It's a one-stop shop for our users. And it also gives our staff the ability to pay more attention now to supporting the strategy of the program, and rather than just the manual components.
That must feel so good.
It's nice. It's nice. We're getting there. We're in a really good spot right now.
Excellent. Well, I'd love to hear from you, Dave, about your program in City of Seattle and some of those design decisions you made.
Sure. There's a lot of parallels to Harvard, actually. So as I mentioned earlier, we received recommendations from a number of cross-departmental teams regarding how we can better support employee engagement, career retention, career mobility, and skill development. And one of the areas they identified was mentorship. At the city, across our 40 departments, about 10 departments had their own department-specific mentorships. And there was one citywide mentorship program that was led by Central Human Resources. And similar to Harvard, it was very administratively burdensome to run our program that 12,000 people had access to, and 2 or 3 staff to support that matchmaking. So my colleague, Sandra Wong, who I mentioned earlier, convened this group to get clarity on the problem that we were trying to solve and to strategize on aligned solutions, because we truly needed a solution that was going to work not just for the citywide program, but also for our specific departments. Where we landed after a number of conversations was not only using a piece of software, but having a piece of software that could do both. So we moved ahead with Chronus with 2 specific tracks. We have our citywide Flash mentorship track, which is basically informational interviews. An employee can go in and they can identify other people from across the city who are mentors and set up a one-on-one 1-hour meeting with them. There is an algorithm, so the system does try to match them based on interests and skills. And then we also have a department mentorship track, which is more of the traditional one-on-one mentorship program. We actually have a department champion in the meeting today, Hillary Harding from IT, who truly led the way for what that looks like across the city. We currently have 3 departments utilizing that track. They had to work together to align some of their processes because they all had existing programs. And we meet as a team monthly to try to figure out how to strategize both programmatically, but also align with the Chronus software. And on the Flash mentorship side, which I can speak to most because that falls kind of with my team, it truly has allowed us to go to scale. We can serve a lot more people more quickly. We can connect people more quickly because we're just out of the equation. People get an orientation, they get some information on what the rules are with the program, and then they're off and they can start connecting with many employees across the city.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's great to hear about how you have the program that connects anyone across the city, but also programs that are specific for departments. And we see that so often, the customers that I work with, where maybe there's an individual department that really has specific departmental goals and wants to get people connected to other people within the department. So I'm glad you're offering both. Tony, would love to hear a little bit more. You've been with us for a long time, but would love to hear a little bit more about the design of your program. And perhaps, I know you didn't design it initially, but the flair that you've added to it as you kind of inherited the program.
Flair is a great word. So I think our program's gone through a lot of evolution. Like I said, we originally started it as an opportunity for members of our employee business resource groups to gain mentoring from one another. And so that was it's only a portion of our entire 55,000 plus employee population. And so what we did is we flipped it. So we thought, instead of employee resource groups being fundamental and then mentoring stacked on top of it, I thought that mentoring should be fundamental and available to all employees. And as a continued evolution of their inclusive leadership, employee resource groups would be the way that they continue to grow. And so that's really what my flair was making that switch and thinking about it from a career first perspective. And so we now operate 2 5-month cohorts per year of one-on-one mentoring. And by having 2 cohorts per year, employees are able to make more connections in the company than they may not have made in the past, especially if there's, if there's just one cohort per year and it's a year long. I think we'll talk a little bit later about depth versus breadth. And I think that's an interesting thing that, when thinking about establishing a mentoring program, you have to really consider in terms of what you're utilizing it for. And so we match our mentors and mentees based on their ranked choice selections of each of them by line of business, whether they want to be mentored within the same line of business, gain insight into a different line of business. They can rank based on employee location. If they want to meet with someone in their own market or someone in a different market, they can meet with or identify based on affiliation within employee business resource groups. And lastly, with skill development area. And that's a lot of connection points, right? To think about when you're ranking how you want to be connected. And so we start with a smart matching algorithm, and then from there review it manually. And it's a lot for 2,600 plus participants in each cohort. But we do have some specific requirements in terms of for the mentors and mentees based on career level, tenure at the bank, professional experience, and performance, which play a significant part in terms of, ensuring the quality of the connections that we're making.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that at the beginning, you're offering 2 cohorts a year. So I imagine, someone may come in and get matched in market or in their job line of business in one cohort, and maybe the next time it's someone in their EBRG. So yeah, that's really amazing. I'd like to switch now to talk a little bit. Well, first, let me pause. If anyone has questions about what they've heard so far, feel free to be dropping those in the chat or in the Q&A section. We'll be sure to address them at the end of the call if you have questions about any of these specific programs that you're hearing about. But I'd like to shift the panel discussion now to chatting a little bit more about the success metrics and ROI that you've had. So if you want to get us started maybe with this one, Dave, how are you measuring the success of your mentoring program, and what kind of key metrics have you decided on internally, maybe across different stakeholders, on how you want to understand and show impact of this program on things like employee development or retention?
Sure. So for our Flash mentorship program, every mentor and mentee completes a survey. And so we do take that experience feedback pretty seriously. However, behind the scenes, we do have a feed between our HR information system and Chronus to measure how are participants moving through the organization compared to those who are not participating in mentorship. So we're looking at career retention, we're looking at internal mobility, and then we're again looking at the candidate surveys to get some more quantitative and qualitative data about their experience. And we have found that that there are impacts, even in just the short time that we've been running the program, that participants in the program are staying with the city longer. They are experiencing job changes. One of the things we mentioned earlier about breaking down silos between departments has been happening. As you can see here, 62% of people are meeting with people from across departments. And overall, people are really happy with the program. We get a lot of fantastic feedback about people learning about departments that they didn't even know existed until they went into the system. Other things that we're hearing from candidates, just more qualitatively, are when people are applying for other jobs in the city, they oftentimes want some help with like resumes and cover letters. And we weren't really able to offer that as a city. And now there's 150 people who can do a resume review or a cover letter review or help prep for an interview at any given point. So people are feeling just more supported in general by the organization because of all the mentors we have in the system. So we overall are very happy. We still feel like we're in the infancy of the program and excited to see where it's going to go. But the results have been pretty positive on the citywide Flash mentorship side.
Yeah, it's always so rewarding to see that satisfaction rate, that high satisfaction rate. So I'm so glad people are happy with that opportunity to hear about different jobs that maybe they didn't know existed at the city before. So Cassie, would love to hear from you next on how you are thinking about success metrics and some of the things that you're measuring.
Sure. Thanks, Jen. So Part of our goal for the program was really to increase and deepen our alumni engagement. Our now we probably have more. We have a lot closer to equal representation for our alumni population with the current student body. Years ago that was not the case. It was far fewer, and really we identified a need for this group was to have more support for their not just professional lives, but around their professional lives too. They needed more than that because they were navigating difficult situations, whether it was with family planning, balancing two dual high level career couples, that sort of thing. And so Circles has really helped with that. And one of our main ways that we've been able to track success is through our numbers of engagement. So the number of participants, which again, I said is about 10% of our alumni population, which is impressive. And also through our surveys, which we've historically had to do, again, very manual process, and then analyze the results. I'm pleased to say that within Chronus, there's really easy opportunity to do a quick poll to your audience and get quick results. So we're really looking forward to utilizing that to get even better survey results and hopefully a higher number of participants to respond. So as you can see, 85% have agreed that their Circles experience is good or a very good experience. So it's a very beloved program.
Amazing. And over your years, Cassie, of running this, I saw that mention about it being like a safe space to share. So I'm curious if you've done any like more digging in when you were doing it manually to like learn why that was, or to get any hypotheses around that.
Yeah, we get, I think one of the best things that we get is the anecdotal feedback from our Circles members too, where they say, we've had people say, Circles has changed my life, which is really powerful to hear that we've been able to help forge a connection that has meant so much to them and help them navigate the challenging times. I mean, as people are going through their careers, they're also going through their personal lives. And through your personal life, you're experiencing a lot of different things, ups, downs, challenging situations, and to be able to lean on other people who may have had to navigate something similarly in a supportive group with a agreement that everyone is going to keep this confidential, which is a core tenet of our program, has been really helpful in terms of making those bonds.
I love hearing that. That could be a good segue. I don't want to, Tony, stop you from sharing kind of how you're measuring success. So maybe you can do that. But I also think that's a great segue to kind of asking a more pointed question, which is if any of you have specific mentor-mentee stories, maybe those more anecdotal stories about connections that have happened in your programs.
I'll take both of those.
Okay.
That's all right. So one of our primary goals is just participation. Since we've switched from this being targeted to our network of employee business resource group members to open to all employees, we want to encourage as many employees as possible to participate. It's part of our talent-focused culture where development at PNC is employee-owned, manager-guided, and PNC supported. So this kind of ticks all those boxes in terms of ensuring that the employees have access to something that PNC provides, is actively a participant, and has their manager guiding them through the process. But like Dave, we're looking at retention and internal mobility. And so ours for PNC is that 84% of participants, and this is a couple years ago, 84% was the average retention rate for participants, and we saw 15% of participants experiencing a promotion within 1 year. So it's really a tool for career growth for us. And one example of that is there was a mentee who was a teller lead at a branch and also a military spouse, and had plans to leave the bank a few weeks after one of the cohorts had began, because her spouse was being relocated to a different base in a market where there weren't any PNC branches. The mentor had previous experience in our customer care center, which is a group that supports our customers remotely. And she knew that the mentee's skills were transferable and aligned. And so they looked at open roles that required comparable skills, and she applied for 2 of them. And in the process, they worked on resume and cover letter, talked through interview best practices, and the mentor also was able to introduce them to senior leaders in that line of business for informational interviews to gain insight, and also just to promote them to senior leaders. And so what ultimately ended up happening is that the mentee ended up getting a new role, which was a promotion, just 2 weeks before they were slated to leave the bank. So it's helped us retain some amazing talent. And to this day, that mentee is able to service our clients remotely and remain part of our talent.
Wow, like the truly transformative power of mentorship and getting that support you need in the critical moments that you need it. So that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that story with us, Tony. Dave, I want to open it up to you to hear if you have any mentor-mentee stories you'd like to share.
Sure, we have a lot. The common story we heard back from people is how exciting it is and energizing it is to just meet somebody else from the city and have a great conversation about career pathways and career exploration. We have a lot of people who say the conversation was so helpful, it made me realize this is exactly the career path I want to pursue. And people who say, I really got to have that conversation. I am definitely not going to pursue that career path. And I think it's been really helpful. But one story that sticks out, I think, is an unexpected use of the system, which we kind of thought would happen, but I didn't think it was going to happen this way. We had an employee from the library a few months ago who was navigating increased situations where they needed to have stronger de-escalation skills. They had taken some online training, but they just felt like it wasn't enough. And they took the initiative to go into the Flash mentorship system and look for people in the city who had strong de-escalation skills. And they found, tapping into the wisdom of the crowd, of our employees. And they found an employee at the police department who had 20 years of de-escalation training. And so they reached out and they connected and they had an incredible conversation. Not only did the employee walk away with a lot of additional resources that they could utilize and different trainings they could take, they also left with more visibility and understanding of a different department, of the police department, and vice versa. And they just have a contact they can call if they have questions. They were able to utilize those skills to pretty good success pretty soon after some of the skills they learned. And I just thought it was a really unique way of using a system just to kind of dive in, find somebody with a skill set, get some more information, and then dive back out and go back to your job. And particularly I heard from the mentor from the police department, they thought it was one of the coolest, exciting things they'd ever had. They'd been at the city 30 years and they never had an experience like that where somebody from the city reached out to them and they could share that skill in real time. But we have many stories that are variation of that from the Flash mentorship program. It definitely helps us move. We have this expression of the city, we're trying to become one Seattle as opposed to 40 different departments. And really this program is one of many strategies to move us together as an organization and connect those dots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's such a fantastic story. I feel like I've sometimes, like in the nonprofit sector, worked at small enough organizations where your job evolves, right? And suddenly you're like doing communications or marketing and you don't have experience in that, but you know who to contact to get help from. And your story is like at such a greater scale where you don't know who to contact or you don't have direct lines. So being able to create those pathways to get people connected is amazing. Well, great. So I think we're going to shift gears again here and just talk a little bit about how you've kind of scaled and sustained your programs. So Dave, maybe I can start with you for this one. Because you just recently launched, how do you gain traction? Like, how are you getting people aware of this opportunity, signed up? Would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. We are still figuring this out, but we have had some strategies, and actually I need to give another shout out to Hillary Harding, who's in this meeting, because she's helped us a great deal with this. Really, we're trying every touch point we can to just make people have visibility to this program. That actually was unexpectedly one of the hardest parts, is ensuring that we could get the word out about the program. So we have it as part of many onboarding processes across the city. We have it on taglines and signatures. We are sharing it through different HR meetings, through training and development teams. Department level mentorships are sharing the Flash Mentorship Citywide program. We're in a space where it's a little bit harder to send out a citywide email, which you'd think would be the easiest way to go. But we also have limited licenses. So we're trying to avoid a situation where we invite 12,000 people to a program that has limited seats. So we're kind of trying to thread a needle with that marketing strategy. So far, it's been going relatively well. I think the one thing that we are also trying to work through is access, making sure there's not too many steps to get into the program. I think originally we had a 1-hour orientation that you had to attend to understand the rules of the program, and after some feedback, we learned that that was a little too much it was too big of a barrier, I think, for participation. So we shrunk that to an 11-minute video you can take anytime. But really, we're trying to introduce it in spaces where people are actively seeking career development, so they see it as a menu of options, because those are the people who are likely to take the next step and engage.
Great. And Cassie and Tony, from your seats, if there's someone, in the audience right now, who is thinking about starting a mentoring program, and isn't there quite yet, is there advice you would offer about how to gain that traction?
Tony, you can go ahead first.
Sure, thanks. So one of the things that we've done, obviously we've still maintained the integration of our diversity and inclusion programming. So we have 132 employee business resource group chapters, and it's like 1 in every 3 employees is a member. And so we do leverage each of those chapters to identify what their annual strategy is around talent, culture, and how they support our community efforts. And so this really goes hand in hand with the talent. So each of those chapters are encouraging their members to participate and sign up. And I want to shout out my team who's on the call today, who really live and breathe this effort every single day. But in addition to that, so that's like one strategy, right? Is adding it to an already established employee engagement component. I think the other one that we've done that has really enabled success is we had challenges previously with, we tested out doing like a 3-month program, a 9-month program. And then when I came on board, we decided that we're going to align it with our talent performance lifecycle. So when employees are getting their performance reviews, when they're writing their development plans, is the opportune time to have a cohort starting. And so the managers can identify it as a development opportunity and they can join. And that's really enabled, I think, the growth and scaling of this program from, kind of where we started to having almost 10% of our employees involved every single cohort, or every single year, sorry.
Definitely a best practice that I've seen in those workplace mentoring programs to kind of align it strategically with the talent development cycle. Is there anything you want to share on this, Cassie, or would you like to talk about scaling?
Yeah, I can probably touch on both at the same time. So, right now we operate in about 15 different regions because our circles groups meet in person. We really encourage the in-person meetings. I think there's interest in people meeting virtually, and we make some accommodations for those requests based on need, but we find that they really take off with that in-person meeting and they form a deeper connection. Right now, we're operating in about 15 different regions across the world. So we are, domestically based in some cities and internationally based as well. But we really rely on our volunteers to help stand up the program in their region because, as we're all talking about this, we have limited staff that can support the program. So we really rely on our volunteers to help get a circle stood up in a different region. And there has to be enough interest and people in that region to be able to form a circle. So our scaling is kind of dependent on the resources to support it and the interest and demand. But for anyone who's considering starting a mentoring program, I think just really starting with what is your goal and what is the need for this audience? It seems simple, but that's really basic, is what are you looking to accomplish and what do they need? And then you can kind of build it from there.
Yeah, and I think it's so true, even in workplace programs, even if it's run centrally, whether out of a D&I office or out of a learning and development office, like you still need those kind of volunteer stakeholders to help champion the program in different parts of the business. So while you're in higher ed, I feel like it's a very similar experience across sectors. So thank you for sharing that. I want to talk a little bit about your experience with the Chronus platform, and then we'll save some time at the end for Q&A. So, there's so much to talk about. Unfortunately, we won't get to dig into all of the questions we had prepared, but I've heard you all talk a little bit about some of the features that you use in a mentoring software, like a matching algorithm or surveys, but would love to hear from you all individually about what made you turn to software, what parts of the platform have been most helpful to you in running your programs. And Tony, maybe you could start us off on this one.
Sure. So like I previously said, I inherited our relationship with Chronus when I stepped into this role. And I think the real benefit of the partnership has been the ability to pilot, pivot, and grow with Chronus. And we've experienced all three of those things in a very short period of time. And I think the flexibility that the platform offers to test out new things and to ensure that they're going to meet the needs of the stakeholders that you're trying to support is it's probably the most important thing, right? And the way that we can tailor the algorithm to match our evolving needs with that as well has been extremely helpful. I think the feedback and the integration of reporting also helpful to share the impact internally as to what the benefit of the program is and how it supports our employees in advancing their careers.
Amazing, thank you. Dave, how about you, as someone newer to the software?
Sure. I echo a lot of what Tony said. I feel like the Chronus software has truly helped us do more with limited staffing and capacity, and we've grown with our Chronus team. Every time we meet, we usually have really quirky questions. We have a lot of different needs, having both a citywide Flash mentorship program and multiple department platforms or department programs. So it's been really great to have access to somebody who can help us brainstorm all of the different things that come up with having two very distinct programs. But honestly, I think because we have more people accessing mentorship than we have in the past, and we have better data that we can report out on that shows the impact of mentorship, which I think is always the hardest thing to do with mentorship programs, because you typically don't get access to large data sets that compare participants in these programs to everyone else who's not in these programs. So I always appreciate that when I'm reminding colleagues or moving up the chain in city government to remind people why there's value in budgeting for mentorship programs. Having this data is really, really impactful. And in the past, it wasn't always easy to get.
How about you, Cassie?
Yeah, so Chronus has really been a great one-stop shop for us on not only staff user side, but also for our alumni side. When you go in there as staff, it's easy to find all the information in one place if you need to look something up, which has been huge. Before, it was dispersed across different areas. So that by itself has been a godsend, which has been really huge. We also love that alumni are better able to connect with each other. We have some privacy concerns around sharing information, but this tool enables them to be able to connect with each other in a confidential way because they're all opted into the program. And, we love the communications campaigns too. It makes it really easy to communicate with our audience and to set up different communication campaigns based on specific audience needs. That has been awesome to use that feature, as well as there's a great resource library. So we're able to put in some best practices for running a circles meeting. It makes it really easy for our volunteers to access the information at their fingertips when they need it, when they're in there. They don't have to dig through their emails or try to find it somewhere else. So it's been really positive experience, and we're really excited to continue to uncover all the different capabilities it has.
That's super helpful, and it's a great segue because right before I open it up to Q&A, I just wanted to share a little bit more about Chronus, because we believe that organizations only reach their greatest potential when their people do, and we want to create these connected workplaces where people can thrive. But in addition to some of the features that you mentioned, and Cassie, you talked about this a bit, like having the content and resources there right when they need it. Engagement in mentoring can be tricky. People can be a little uncertain about what to talk about with their mentoring partner. They can overthink it. And we have created this, or we have this feature called Guided Conversations that offers an in-app experience. It's easy, it's flexible, where there are those, light prompts right when people need it. So we recently released this feature to deliver even more value to mentoring participants. And already as a result, we're seeing increases in terms of the guided conversations. We've seen 80% say that they've stayed engaged post-match, 98% say that it's helpful, and we've done more than 200,000 of those so far. So you can see here some of those impacts. If you're interested in learning more about guided conversations or just Chronus in general, based on what you've heard today, feel free to hit the Talk to Our Experts button here. But yeah, would love to pass it to our audience for Q&A. If you haven't already, feel free to put questions in the chat or into the Q&A area for our panelists. And perhaps one that we can ask here is around how you all have adapted to industry change. So looking at 2025 and beyond, I'm just going to throw this one in there while we're waiting for more questions. Oh, wait, hold on. I see people in the Q&A. Sorry about that. It took a second for it to load. Okay, so this one says, many employees who choose to join mentorship programs are often already high performers. When measuring retention and promotion rates, do you do anything to isolate the impact of the mentorship experience itself? Would any of our panelists like to chime in on that one?
So I don't sit in analytics and metrics teams, but I think that we look at certain career levels when we're evaluating the retention and advancement of our employees with regard to the mentoring program. And a lot of it is where we see the most attrition in terms of so we look at those levels that historically have the most attrition, which are typically those frontline employees and those in our retail space. And so that's what we look at it overall, and then we slice and dice it based on different career levels and different lines of business. So I think you really have to look at it in all those areas in order to understand the impact that it's having, because lines of business are all very different and may have different needs.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Nikki, if you have any follow-ups, please feel free to drop them in the chat. But I'll just answer one more question that I'm seeing in the Q&A, which is, how do you currently keep people engaged in relationships, especially beyond the first couple meetings?
I'm happy to jump in on this one. We make it really clear up front that if you are signing up for this program, you're signing up for a year, and we expect you to show up to every meeting. So we really drive this home up front as much as possible and stress the importance of why. So that's something that we've been doing to help with that. And then we also have a task list that goes throughout the course of the year to keep you on track for things that you should be doing in each month. And it's really straightforward. So in the third month, you should make sure that you're setting up your meeting. And if you want to have an agenda or topics, you should be outlining those for your group. So that kind of helps to try to keep people on track.
And I'll add from a different angle. This came up in some of our conversations, and one of the reasons why we chose to do a flash mentorship, a one-time meeting citywide, was because there were a number of mentors who really wanted to participate in mentorship, but they couldn't commit to 3 months or 6 months, but they really wanted to be part of this and share knowledge to the best of their ability. So the way we kind of thread the needle with this is we have this flash mentorship program. And if people want to continue a relationship outside of the system, they are more than welcome to do that with flash mentorships. I know there is a conversion to one-on-one mentorship in Chronus. We haven't gotten that far yet, but we're considering it. But we do have our department mentorship programs that ask mentors and mentees to commit to that 6-month period. And I know that they do a combination of emails and different engagement techniques regarding reminders and things like that.
Yeah, Flash is definitely offering that like low commitment way to engage, which can be great for getting people in the organization who might not be able to participate otherwise. So we have another great question. This may be our last one just due to time, but does anyone have a pitch template for selling it to management? I heard several talking points. I'm wondering if there are any convincing resources to show management the value of a scaled program, the ROI, timelines, hard costs, administrative load, etc. And I'll chime in there that, Casey, I'm sure our Chronus team can help provide some of those resources. But in addition, panelists, is there anything that you found especially helpful? You did this most recently, Dave and Cassie, but anything that you found especially helpful in trying to sell, we need to get this mentoring software?
So for the city of Seattle, there's power in having diverse stakeholders from across different divisions and departments coming together and saying we need this. We had about 12 departments, or maybe even more than that, come together and say we would like to put some money aside to test this and pilot it and try it. And that's kind of how we did it. We backed that up with data that we found ourselves and data we received from Chronus that talked about the impact. And now we have data that shows that there is a positive impact to mentorship in the city, and then we can back that up for future funding. We can use that to back up future funding.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. If you have multiple groups who are looking to use the platform, that can help strengthen your request. Something that was helpful for us to outline were all the different tools that we were currently using to achieve what we needed to run the program, which was over 10 different tools. So to be able to outline that we were using 10 different platforms or applications, and we could really use Chronus to meet most of our needs was a huge selling point.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to our incredible panelists that we have here from Harvard, from PNC Financial, City of Seattle. It's been such a thought-provoking conversation, so generous of you to share your time with us and to share what has made mentoring really work for you. So appreciate you, Cassie, Dave, and Tony. To our audience, if you'd like to connect with any of our panelists on LinkedIn, we're displaying on the screen their LinkedIn profiles. So that's something you can do next. And I just want to thank you all for spending part of your day with us as an audience. It's been such a joy to see some of these questions come through and happening in the chat. I hope that you're leaving with a few new ideas, aha moments, maybe even like a renewed sense of what's possible with mentoring. We will be sending out a copy of this recording in the next 24 hours so that you can revisit any parts of this conversation. Skip over that part where I dropped off, the call for a minute, but share it with your colleagues. And until then, I just want to say, take good care. Thanks for being here, and we hope to see you at another Chronus event soon. Thanks, everyone.